Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Graham, and I'm the garden coordinator from UC Davis Tahoe Environmental Research Center. We call it TURC for short. Welcome back to those of you who joined us for our garden workshop last week. We're super excited to be talking about potatoes this evening, and along with the UCCE Master Gardeners, Slow Food Lake Tahoe, and the Tahoe Heritage Foundation. We're excited to be able to continue to bring these garden workshops to everyone in our community, a much higher number than we typically get to reach in our community when we host them in person. So given the circumstances of everything with COVID right now, we've transitioned to hosting these online, which is definitely a bizarre format when gardening is typically a very hands-on activity, but we're excited to continue teaching everyone and learning from our great gardeners in the area here who have a lot of experience and valuable knowledge. So a few things before we get going with our presenter, Melissa, this evening. We have some other upcoming workshops after this one. On May 19th, we'll be featuring lettuce and kale. On May 26th, we'll be featuring artichokes. On June 2nd, we'll be featuring tomatoes. And a new addition on June 16th, we'll be having a follow-up question and answer session, which I'll share more information about later, but an unfortunate reality of us not being able to gather together in person is that we can't share recipes and share from our personal experience in addition to the knowledge that our presenter has. So we're hoping that Q&A session after people have had a chance to go out and test some of these tips and tricks that are coming from these presentations, that maybe people will have additional questions or maybe they'll have some valuable advice to share with their fellow gardeners in the area here. A thing to note, our lettuce and kale, artichokes, and tomatoes registration from here on out will not have starter plants involved. We've been really, really excited and overwhelmed by the number of people who have registered for our workshops. So everyone who's registered up until this point are going to get those lettuce and kale and artichoke and tomato starter plants, but anyone who is just learning about those workshops and registering from here on out, unfortunately, we're over capacity for the number of starter plants that we have available. So we will be able to get those out to those of you who have already registered, but if you're registering from here on out, unfortunately, that'll be a missed opportunity. And I know a lot of the garden supply stores around the area have also sold out. So we can try to get you some information about places that you can look for some of those starter plants or for some seeds if you're interested in those. So if you joined us last week, you know that there were some Zoom tutorial elements that we wanted to include to make sure that everyone gets the best experience out of this workshop. This workshop will be recorded so that it will be posted online for any viewers to watch again, or for those of who weren't able to join us live can watch it online. Hopefully it'll be posted by tomorrow. We've had some technical difficulties in the last week in trying to get that online, so it might be Thursday at the latest that will get up on the website. I'll be sharing the link in the follow-up email on where you can watch that. But for those of you who are joining us again or joining us for the first time, at the end of Melissa's presentation on potatoes today, we will have a question and answer session. And for that question and answer session, I'll ask that everyone puts their questions in the chat box. Throughout the presentation, everyone joining us except Melissa and myself will be muted to help things move as seamlessly as possible. So any questions that you have come up throughout the presentation or when that question and answer session starts, you'll, along the bottom of your screen, you can see the 3 dots. If you hover your cursor over in the screen sharing mode, I think it's at the top of the screen, and you can click that chat box and type any questions you might have in the box that will pop up that will look like this here. Another feature to help your viewing pleasure of this workshop, here's a fun screenshot of me and my roommate playing around with Zoom today. When you're viewing everyone, you might be able to see multiple people's faces, which is called gallery view. If you only want to see the speaker, which will be Melissa or myself this evening, you can in the top right corner click speaker view, and that'll make it so that you only are seeing the person who is talking on the screen. Another fun feature, when I'm in this screen sharing view like this, when we're showing the video that Melissa has made for us today, or if we're showing slides, in the top right corner, you'll see some of these video people as well. You can click and see there's 3 options, and these 3 options will let you minimize those viewers. And so you won't have to see anyone else in that screen with you. Just not necessary, but will maybe allow you to see more of the screen and more of the slide content that Melissa has prepared for you all. But that's all of the Zoom knowledge that I'm going to share today, and we're just going to jump right into the presentation. Melissa Guthrie is our presenter tonight. We call her our potato guru. She's been a Lake Tahoe master gardener for 4 years. She moved from SF by way of Baltimore and LA about 8 years ago and is a full-time resident of Tahoma. She has 2 feline children who keep her safe from all the bears here. She was encouraged from birth by her pop to grow and dig on both coasts. She has a medical background and is an artist as well, so gardening, especially for nutrition and learning, is a good fit. She's super enthusiastic about these workshops and the Master Gardener program because it fits with her mission to educate and encourage more people to garden. So Melissa has prepared for us an awesome video to show us all of the fun things that she knows about potatoes. So we're going to show these 2 videos for you all, and then we're going to move into the question and answer section.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and we're going to talk about potatoes today, specifically growing potatoes in the Tahoe, Truckee region, a little bit about nutrition and why and how to grow potatoes in Tahoe. Why potatoes in Tahoe? Well, potatoes originally were cultivated at elevation in the Andes, and we have something in common. We have elevation, and we also have acidic soil. Acidic soil because we have pine needles and wood chips in abundance, which is great for the soil, and potatoes love them. Potatoes can be grown just about anywhere. You can grow them from sea level all the way to 15,000 feet and any latitude from Chile to Greenland. They can be grown just about in any container, be it a garden bed, raised bed, outside in your yard, a bucket, a belt bag, your trunk, your pantry if you're not careful. Potato plants actually require pretty much minimal care. They like full sun, so it makes it easy. They are beautiful plants, and they have really pretty flowers. Potatoes that you grow in your own garden are absolutely the best tasting potatoes ever. You're just gonna have to trust me on that one. Okay, seed potatoes. Seed potatoes are potatoes from potatoes, which is vegetative propagation. So they are going to be the easiest way to grow potatoes, and they are genetically clones of the mother potato. You can also grow potatoes from true potato seeds, which are the seeds that are in the fruit of the potato plant. Those will get you genetically different potatoes because they're pollinated by bees, which may or may not have pollen from different plants. It's 2 different ways. What we're giving you is seed potatoes, which is the easiest way of growing potatoes, and also with our short growing season, the best way to grow potatoes. Seed potatoes are going to come to you. They're going to be sprouted, eyed, or chitted. A lot of terminology there, but basically it means that your little potato looks like something that you would throw out. That's good for seed potatoes because that's what we're going to put in the ground, and we're going to put those with those little growths on it facing up to give your seed potato or your seed potato plant a leg up so it just goes straight up. So that's a good thing. That's what they're going to look like. Eyed, sprouted, chitted, whatever you want to call it, that's what you're going to put in the ground. If you can't plant those seed potatoes right away, and May in Tahoe is the perfect time, you want to put them in a paper bag in a dry, cool, dark space and leave them until you can't plant them. Right now, again, when you get them, plant them. Okay, let's talk a little bit about potato nutrition. Potatoes are very nutritious, full stop. But they also provide more potassium than bananas. They provide 45% of your recommended daily vitamin C. They are packed full of fiber, especially if you eat the skins. Antioxidants, B6, they help with absorption of iron. They're 1/4 of the calories of a slice of bread. There's no gluten, there's no fat, there's no cholesterol. They are great for diabetics because they are a resistant source of carbohydrates. They create probiotics, and that's good. Okay. And they're actually a better food crop than grains, and again, less land and less water requirements. Here are the stages of planting and growth and what it looks like for potatoes. First stage, getting your dirt and your soil and your whatever you're going to plant it in ready. So the soil really needs to be about 45 degrees, meaning past your last hard frost. Potatoes are okay with a little bit of frost, but basically you want that soil to be nice and crumbly and aerated and slightly moist, not sopping wet. Potatoes do not like sopping wet. So get your soil ready, dig in about 6 inches. We're going to go over that, so I'm going to show you. But basically you're going to dig a trench, hollow out in your bucket, whatever it is you're going to plant in. And you get your seed potato and you're going to plant it with the sprout side up. If you're doing cut ones, you want the cut side down and hardened off, and I'll show you examples of that. That's kind of stage 1. Stage 2 is going to be about 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you're going to start seeing looks like a little green pile of leaves without a prominent stem yet, but leaves basically. So then you're going to get a stem, and you'll see in the picture there where you see they get to be about a foot or to 3 feet tall, lots of leaves, great canopy, and then eventually flowers. Flowers are when you're going to get tubers or new potatoes that are starting to form. The flowers are the key. When you see flowers, that's when you know that your plant is starting to make new potatoes. That's when you want water at a really even level so that you are giving the plant the most energy and the most support for its stem, as well as the leaves, as well as going up and down and giving those new potatoes water. Fourth stage is going to be when your foliage is going to start to look not so great. That's good, because what that means is that plant is focusing on growing those potatoes underground. That's when you're going to start to taper off on your water so that your plant stops making new leaves and focuses on the potatoes under the ground. Pretty much taper to stop, which is your 5th stage. Basically, when your potato plant looks not so great, looks like it's dying, it's good, totally good. Stop watering it completely and let those tubers underground use all the nutrients from the plant and also cure a bit. And it's going to be that's about 2 weeks from then. And then 2 weeks from then, once your plant is completely dead and you've stopped watering, you can go and dig around in the dirt, and that's harvest. So harvesting, you're going to look in a circumference about 8 inches from your stem of your potato plant, and you're just going to go down to where you think that you put your seed potato. Don't touch the seed potato. It's mush and it's gross and it's disgusting, and you'll scream and pull your hand out. But that's where your potatoes are going to be. So if you're doing it in a container, you're going to dump the container out. That's the easiest, because there you go, they're all in the bottom. If you're doing it in the ground, then it's really fun to dig. It's kind of like a potato Easter egg hunt. And then you're going to cure them. That's pretty much the last stage, is when you take the potatoes out so that the skins dry a little bit, and that prolongs the storage period for potatoes. And then you have potatoes for a couple months. Along the way, just note that if you want to, you can feel around at 6-7 weeks into it, and you'll find little itty bitty potatoes around where you've planted the seed potato, and those you can harvest right away. It won't damage the plant as long as you're gentle, and you can eat those right away. They will have soft skins and give you kind of an idea of what you're going to get in the end. It doesn't hurt the plant. It will diminish the number of potatoes that you'll get, but it actually makes the fewer potatoes that you get bigger. Okay, some pictures from my garden over the years past to give you a little bit of overview in like real life pictures. Number 1 is seed potatoes, and that's kind of when you're planting them. You're going to look and see that they are sprout side up. Number 2 is in a bucket that my dad gave me for Christmas, and I planted them in there. So in the forefront you can see that's probably 3-4 weeks growth, and then behind it is probably 4 or 5. But you can see how tall they get. So 1 to 3 feet, they really do get that tall. Nice canopy, and of course they are a pretty plant. Then you get 3rd stage, and that's when your flowers start to bloom. Those ones are yellow, but they'll turn creamy and they'll go purple. And that's when you know that your plant is trying to make your potatoes. So give it water, moderate water, even water, fourth stage, you can see there's some mature flowers, and those ones actually are white cream. I don't know where the purple ones went, but anyways, so that's your mature plant, and those are your flowers that are just full bloom, starting to die, and that's when your potatoes are bulking up. Fifth stage there, you can see that yellow, ugly looking plant, and that's where the most people get worried and they start watering more. Don't do that. That's the point where you want to stop watering, stop watering, stop watering. If it looks like that, stop watering, because you want to concentrate that energy into your plant rather than watering it and making your plant try and make more leaves, which would make smaller potatoes. And then the last is when you're going to dig them up and eat them. So those were potatoes from last year, and I've left those in that bowl after I've dug them out because I want the skins to kind of harden and dry and cure a little bit so that they'll store longer. After they have done that, I'll wash the dirt off of them, let them dry again, and then either throw them in the refrigerator or in a cool, dry place if you're going to use them within a month or so. This is a picture of a friend who I sent three weeks ago, something like that. Some of the purple Peruvian potatoes from last year that I had overwintered, and she wanted to try. So I thought this was a fun slide. So she planted them in a container in Southern California, and this was just this last week, and she sent them to me. So probably 3 weeks old. I just wanted you to get a little picture of how you can grow them anywhere in anything. Potato plants. This is a drawing that I did just so you'd kind of get an overview of what's going on underground when you plant your mother tuber or your seed potato. I thought that was interesting just so you would know when you're growing what to look for and what's going on with your potato plant. So at the very top you have your flowers. Most importantly is your mother tuber, which is kind of like it is your seed potato. So seed potato, that's what you're going to plant, sprouts up, grows a stem, as you can see, and the stem's going to create leaves, photosynthesis, CO2, and energy down. That's kind of like your plant highway. So then you have leaves, and all the way at the top are flowers. Flowers, as I said, are really, really beautiful, but also they signify that your plant is now making potatoes. So once you see those little purple cream flowers, you know that your plant is making its potatoes. Don't mess with it. Going down the plant, you'll see it will make several shoots around the plant, but usually potato tubers grow on level with where you plant your seed potato or your mother plant. You will need to hill them up because as your potato plant grows, even if your seed potato is at the bottom, it will grow shoots out, as you can see from the picture, and those will form tubers or new potatoes. And you do want to keep them covered. And then just going down, you see stolons are little knobby things on the roots, and those are potatoes that will or will not turn into new potatoes. And then your root systems. When your flowers start to kind of like look sad and lonely, and your leaves are droopy a bit, that's when your potato plant is focusing all its energy on growing those new potatoes. And that's when you kind of want to taper off on your water. Okay, a little bit about solanine. This is what we worry about with potatoes and why we tell you to hill them up. So if your new potato tubers are exposed to sunlight, then they turn green, and that is a glycoalkaloid, part of the nightshade family, and that's the thing that we don't want you to eat. You can cut it away. I gave you some examples here and pictures of what's okay and what's not okay. Obviously the green ones in the bottom there, don't eat those, just throw those out. If it's a little bit above that, then you can see you can just cut that out, not so bad. And then the example right here is the ones that are just what happens if you don't cover them up as they grow. And the bottom is just a quick refresher of potatoes to eat, potatoes to grow. So solanine won't kill you, will give you a stomach ache, don't eat those ones. Goals in progress. So why are we giving these potato packs and why do we keep changing the varieties? We kind of are trying to find out exactly what potatoes grow best in Tahoe and which ones are tasty, and so that you don't fail as home vegetable gardeners. Last year we had a Chieftain, we had a Corolla, and a Mount Rose. All waxy potatoes, very pretty, tasted great, and grew well. I think the Corolla was the best one. part of what we're doing is accumulating data about what grows well so that we can better advise home growers in our region specifically so that they know what grows really well and they don't fail and it tastes good. This year we have Huckleberry Gold, which is a purple-blue potato. We have a Norland Red, which is a reddish colored potato. And then we have a Golden Nugget. So that's what we're going to give you in your potato packs this year. Our potato packs this year will include 3 to 4 seed potatoes. So again, a Norland Red, a Huckleberry, or a Gold. A cheat sheet with planting tips and also some information about the stages and what to look for of your plants as they grow. Also contact and help information, because we do want to guide you, and if you need help or you run into a problem, we are providing information so you can get in contact with us and ask us questions. A donation envelope. We are funded by our own gardeners and with the sole purpose of collecting information. So anything that helps us in this mission is great, and you do get a great pack. Also, we would love to field any questions, and we love pictures of your plants. Potato packs. This is a little bit about where you can pick up your potato packs. On May 16th, we're going to be several areas around the lake and in Truckee. So you can see Verde, the demonstration garden, Tahoe City, and Incline Village. So there's no reason why you shouldn't go and try and get your pack and grow potatoes. And a little bit of information here, I'll let you read that. We also have in our group of presentations lettuce and kale, tomatoes, artichokes, and hopefully you all watched the organic gardening last week.
We have one other video from Melissa about planting potatoes that we will share. And then as she started to talk about the pickup process, we'll get into more details about that at the end of the workshop here. And thank you so much to Melissa for putting together these videos. We were concerned about her Wi-Fi strength. So I know this is a little bit different format than previous weeks. So hopefully everyone's Wi-Fi with the weather here is permitting some good streaming of these beautiful videos that Melissa and her husband worked to put together for us. So without further ado, let's learn how to plant some potatoes.
Okay, for the fun part. Now I'm going to show you how to plant the potatoes and the containers you can plant them in. This is my raised bed, which is where I'm going to start because that's the easiest. I also have a kitty litter bucket, which I have painted red so you don't see the kitty litter stuff. And very important, I have drilled holes in the sides and the bottom for drainage. Potatoes do not like to be waterlogged. Okay, then we have these really cool felt bags. They have handles so you can drag them around. And they work great for potatoes, not only because they're dark, and so you get a lot of warmth, extra warmth in there for our short growing season, but you can get them on Amazon fairly inexpensively, or if you want, just contact one of us and we have them, and we're happy to give you a few. I have put in approximately the amount of dirt to kind of show you that you don't need to start with a bunch of dirt like all the way up to the top, because you're going to add as they grow. So this is probably, I don't know if you can see that, but about the amount of dirt, and if you're looking from its side view, it's probably about 3 inches up. Same deal with the bucket here. You can see about there and filled to roughly where the drain holes are. And just a quick thing about soil. One of the things about Tahoe is that we have our own natural fertilizer. This is a bag filled with raked up pine needles and wood shavings from when we had our firewood delivered. And after we stacked it, it had all this nice wood shavings, and those are perfect for potatoes. And you just mix them into the soil. I've already mixed some in there, but I'll just show you. You just kind of put it in and then add it in. And what that does is it's like natural compost for Tahoe. Plus, it makes the soil not heavy, and so the soil is kind of aerated and not hard packed. Potatoes don't like hard packed soil. They like wiggle room. Okay, The other thing that's important about planting potatoes is your soil. You don't want waterlogged soil. You want to put your seed potatoes in soil that kind of stays sort of together, but you can't squeeze it and get water out of it. You can squeeze it and dirt falls out, but crumbly. So crumbly but pre-moistened. I like to pre-moisten my soil before I put the potatoes in, because seed potatoes actually contain their own water for a bit until they start sprouting up green shoots. These are our little guys, our actor potatoes. These are Peruvian purples from last year that I overwintered, because the ones that we're going to give you this year we haven't got yet. We won't get for the next week or so. But essentially same process. These guys have their little eyes or sprouts. They're chitted when they look like this. And usually you want to find some that have at least two. I think I scratched these off because they're actor potatoes, but at least two. And you want to have those guys pointing up. The other way, my other actor potato is an example of when you have a bigger potato that has lots of eyes. So let's see the little guys there, eyes. You can cut them in half. And then you have two potato plants versus just one, especially if they have a lot of eyes. And so I just wanted to show you when you cut them, that's kind of how they look. And you want to let them sit for, oh, now I made it dirty. You want to let that edge dry for about 12 to 24 hours, just so that it seals it so they're not as likely to rot. And basically, you can get more bang for the buck. All right, let's plant them. We'll start with our little guys here. And as you can see, I have kind of dug us out and hilled up on the side here. That way I don't keep having to add dirt to the box here. And potatoes are going to grow from where I put the seed potato, which is actually the mother tuber, we're going to call her. And they're going to grow straight out in like horizontal. They're not going to come up too much. And they're definitely not going to go down too much. So then you go to look for them later. That's what you're going to do. So eye side up. This happens to be my cut guy. So I'm going to put him in there. You can see he's in there. See the little eyes sticking up? And that's guy. He's got a little eye. Good 6 inches apart. They don't really mind being too crowded, so don't be too fussy about it. You just don't want to put them right on top of each other. Okay, so we got two in. We'll put one more in. Again, eyes, don't want to stress them out by making them have to grow from under the plant and up. We're going to give them a head start by letting those those eyes already are on the top. Put them in, and then we're just going to cover them. Just a couple inches of soil. Whoops, make sure he doesn't come back up. A couple inches of soil, just so they're covered. And it's moist soil, so I'm not going to water it. What I did water to pre-moisten the soil was homemade fertilizer, because I don't put any chemicals in my vegetable beds. So what this is just water and banana peels. You let it splash around there for 3 days, and then I dumped it in my soil before I put it all in here. A lot of potassium and nutrients just in the banana peels, and then throw it out and start over. All right, so those guys are in. Same deal with your bags. Again, I would just kind of hollow it out, get my seed potato, stick them in, fluff the soil over them, and there you go until you start seeing those green shoots out. As the green shoots and leaves come up, you're going to keep adding until you get until it starts to flower. When it starts to flower, that really means that your potato plant is working really hard on making your little new spud potatoes underneath there. So at that point, you can add a little bit more soil if you see the potatoes kind of edging up towards the surface. But other than that, you should be fine. At that point, you have a really good green canopy of leaves. So the leaves also provide shade for those potatoes that are working underneath there. And once you've planted your potatoes, super important because you can't see where you put them, make yourself a sign. I drew this little potato sign. These are for the purple Peruvian potatoes. And I'm going to stick that in there so that I don't plant something over when I forget. And then the other part that's really important is put a date. That way you know exactly, you can kind of figure out what your timeline is for how long it is until you saw your first green and then to harvest. So I would expect these guys to come up and need a little bit more dirt in probably like 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that, maybe even less. And then I will be probably ready to harvest all these guys in about 10 to 12 weeks. So potatoes, with our season up here, they grow pretty well with their little head start on seed potatoes. And I'm just going to put that in there. So, all right, in conclusion, you can buy potatoes at the grocery store, but you absolutely cannot buy the happiness that growing your own potatoes gives you.
Now, Melissa is going to join us, and we're going to move on to our question and answer session. So, Melissa, are you unmuted?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, great. Give me just 2 seconds to pull up our questions for you to start off. The first question that you can start answering is, should flowers be left on the plant or picked off?
Left on the plants, unless, it's an interesting question because last year we had Peruvian purples that grew really, really tall, and they had tons of flowers, and it was like lots of foliage and lots of flowers, but less potatoes. So at a certain point in the season, because our season is so short, you can chop the tops off of it, and it gets towards like late August, and it's still going crazy and being really lots of leaves and lots of flowers, just because that will force the plant to concentrate its energy back down into growing potatoes rather than trying to self-pollinate. Does that answer that?
Yeah. All right. Next question is, does the mother plant grow potatoes year after year, or do you need to grow new seed potatoes?
This is an awesome question because two things. The mother plant is your seed potato. So when in the video I was talking about how when you're kind of trying to feel around in the dirt and see if your potatoes are ready, you get that mucky, icky, yucky, horrible slug feeling thing. That is your mother plant, and she is done. So no, your mother plant will not grow any additional potatoes other than that 1 year. She will make potatoes, and those are what you're gonna harvest. So no, your mother plant will not grow anything other than baby plants, baby potatoes. Sorry.
Awesome. The next question is, what is the latest we should harvest at 7,000 feet of elevation? Or if you can speak to different elevations as a whole.
Okay. So that the elevation more goes to temperature. So you can harvest all the way up until it starts to until the ground is about to start freezing. So once the temperature, it's really temperature, not so much elevation. As long as the temperature is above 45 degrees, you can keep your the ground. In this area, and I'm quite high in Rubicon, you can harvest potatoes into September if your plants have if you've had warm until that time. Once your plants die off and they're brown essentially, and then you really need to pull your potatoes out. Otherwise, the ground will freeze and they'll just have to stay there till next year, and then you risk that opportunity to crop rotate, because you're going to have those potatoes that are left in the ground. They will sprout and create new substandard potatoes that don't have enough nutrients because they've been grown in the same area. So it's really temperature dependent. I would probably pull out all my potatoes in September at the latest, for a quick answer.
Great. The next question is,
great questions.
Do yams and sweet potatoes grow well in this area?
These are really great questions. Okay, sweet potatoes and yams are not in the same family as potatoes. They are actually part of in the same family as nightshades, and I would tell you the name. It starts with a C. It's like Cordelia, and I can't pronounce it, so I'm not going to even try. But they are not in the same family as potatoes. And generally, a quick answer to that is yams and sweet potatoes do not generally grow well in this area.
Simple enough. Is there an issue with bears digging up potatoes or squirrels and voles? And if so, what should be done about that?
I have not bears. I have no. We live right up next to the national forest, and do have bears that kind of cruise in through our area. They have never dug up any of my potatoes. Squirrels have never dug up my potatoes. Voles, once they take a nibble, but it's not their cup of tea. And so generally, I have never had a problem really with critters and potatoes. Sometimes the bunnies will nibble on the leaves, but they don't really like them. And I think that has something to do with the solanine or nightshade family. It can be potentially poisonous in a raw state. So no, not really. Again, good crop in Tahoe.
How long do you have to wait to cover the green plants with dirt?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so, and I was hoping, because there's so much potato information that I really didn't get enough time to talk about all the wonderful things about potato plants, but potato plants are a two-stem plant. So you have your underground stem and your upground stem, and potatoes are actually just engorged stem. So the thing about hilling them up is once you start seeing baby leaves on the above ground stem, you want to cover those baby leaves because those will make potatoes. And that's why you get, when you dig up a potato plant, you get large tubers at the bottom, kind of, but they do grow semi-horizontally, and you get smaller potatoes at the top because those are what you've been hilling up, creating stems from the, or underground stems from the main stem, which makes new little potatoes, or stolons is what they start out as. So to answer that question more directly, how long do you have to wait? Once you see a couple different leaves on that above ground stem, you can hill those up. So usually that's around 2 to 3 weeks. But no, actually I shouldn't say that. 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, is safe. But when you see them, and it also depends on how deep you plant them. So if you're going shallow and you've only put 3 or 4 inches on top, you'll probably see those little leaves on that stem sooner rather than later. But once you see the little leaves on the bottom of that stem, go for it.
Next question is, if you plant in a pot, will they grow up or just out?
Same thing no matter where you plant them. Potatoes grow horizontally. It's kind of if you're planting them in a pot and you plant them with only a small amount of dirt, it's going to seem, your stem is going to grow up, and if you hill, you'll get potatoes going up as you hill, but essentially they grow in the same plane as where the dirt is. These are really good questions. I love it.
Well, you're super knowledgeable, and it's awesome to hear.
I'm not at all.
How long after the initial planting do you start watering?
Okay, so watering is 0. So planting day is 0 to 30 days. You don't need a lot of water, so just kind of it's not crucial, because your seed potato contains a lot of water that's stored in order to sustain it for roughly that period. When you get to the 30 to 60 day period, that's when your potato plant needs even non-waterlogged water. So again, by that squishy soil test, you do not want to be able to take your potato soil and squish it and have water drop out. You want it kind of evenly moist. For usually it's 30 to 60 days is that kind of even watering, because that's formation of your baby potatoes. And then from 60 to 90 days is when your potatoes in the ground are bulking up. So again, even water at that point. After, from 90 to 120 plus days is when you kind of want to taper off your watering, and then when your plants look kind of like they're dying off, or it starts to get cold, really cold, you want to stop watering completely, focuses all the energy down into the tubers that are in the ground, and also makes them kind of, like I was saying, cure and protect themselves. So you're no longer feeding the top plant, you're feeding what you want.
How many seed potatoes would you put in your kitty litter tub?
I don't know, Bert. Hey. Sorry, I'm being silly. In a kitty little tub, that big huge one, I would probably put 2 seed potatoes, and you get a 1 to 10 amount per weight of potatoes. So if you put in 1 potato, you're going to get 10 times in terms of weight, and that in a kitty litter tub, you can get, I don't know, maybe 8 potatoes. So that's pretty good. For a first try, I highly recommend it. With the only caveat with that is with fingerlings. So those are the kind of longer, skinny, finger-looking ones. They tend to not want to be as crowded. But so with fingerlings, again, I would put 2 in there because they're smaller. But with regular potatoes, 2 is fine. I wouldn't put much more in than that.
Okay. Is it best to plant where you can get the most sun?
Yes, full stop. Potatoes like sun. That's one of the great things about our short season and the container, growing potatoes in containers, is that you can kind of follow the sun. So you can see with the kitty litter bucket and also the felt bags by the handles, you can put them in the evening where you know you're going to get full morning sun, and then also kind of move them throughout the day if you happen to be quarantined and at home doing nothing other than moving your potato buckets for food so you don't starve to death. So yes, they need full sun, and container gardening in a short season, growing season is an easy way to do that.
Great. What do you advise for bug or beetle infestations?
I haven't had any bug or beetle infestations in the 8 years that I've grown potatoes in Tahoe. If you do, it's a simple thing is to go out if you feel like you're having bugs or beetles or they're eating leaves and it's not a rabbit, or even if it is a rabbit, you can in the evening do really diluted white vinegar or dish soap, and just spray it on the leaves. Most bugs do not like that at all. Or citrus, but you want to avoid doing that during sunlight or hot hours of the day because it'll burn the leaves. One of the benefits of being in Tahoe and growing, and also for that matter at elevation, is that we don't get a lot of diseases because of our dry climate and our more or moderately acidic soil. So no, I don't think that bugs or beetles is a big, huge problem.
Okay.
But you can try that.
How do I overwinter leftover potatoes to create seed potatoes for next summer?
Okay. So in future discussions, hopefully I will get into what seed potatoes are specifically and why they're different from regular potatoes, but you can overwinter potatoes. And I do it just by waiting when they're not too shriveled, and then I'll just throw them in the vegetable bin of my refrigerator in a brown paper bag and just leave them there and not touch them, not do anything to them. It's not advisable to do that because they are most often, because you grew them, they're not mature, fully developed potatoes. And also you run the risk, if that potato crop had any disease going, you run the risk of transmitting that into your next crop. And also you will get less potatoes and not as big potatoes. But that being said, you can still do it, and it's fun to do it. And especially if you particularly loved your potatoes that you grew, to save that seed potato is great. Just if you want to do that, leave your potatoes in the ground to the very last minute so they are as mature as possible, and make sure that they don't have any sign of any diseases, or the plant that they came from didn't show any sign of diseases, so that you're not transferring that to your next potato crop and then rotate your crops on top of that to prevent. Okay, that was a long answer, sorry. But it's real, I'm passionate about that. I do want to talk about that at some point in the future.
Yeah, there were a lot of questions about that and talking about whether you can use store-bought potatoes and eyes. So.
Oh, wait, so, no, good. So store-bought potatoes, you can use them if they're completely organic, but again, it's going to be diminished return. And also, if you buy them and they're treated in the store, they have anti-sprout, so it's hit or miss whether you're actually going to get potatoes from seed potatoes. From store-bought potatoes, it's much better to start with seed-pod potatoes because they are certified disease-free and most of the time they're organic and not treated with anything. Okay, how do I overwinter? No, that's the same question. Okay.
Yep. Next question. When do we start to mound soil around the plants? I think you've already answered this a little bit, but.
It's okay. When you start to see the little leaves at the top and it's starting to come up and you see that stem, probably, let's have 4 or 5 inches, and you start to see little bottom leaves. And you don't have to put a lot. You can cover the whole plant. It's not going to hurt it. Just don't pack the soil. Key.
Is that only done once, or do you do that every time there are little?
Oh, multiple times. I mound until I start to get flowers. Once you start to get flowers, you know your potato plant is pretty much concentrating on what it's doing. So once you start to get flowers, that's usually at 6 to 30, 60 days, something in that range. And as long as your plant looks substantial and healthy, I would stop mounding it unless it starts to put potatoes on the surface. If you start to see potatoes on the surface, keep mounding. You don't want them to be see the sun. A lot of times that the canopy of the potato plant will protect them, but if you can actually see potatoes at the surface of the soil, add dirt, at least 2 or 3 inches.
Cool.
Oh, I see Stephanie raise her hand. What do I do anything for that? I didn't.
No, we're not doing hand raising for this.
Oh, okay, sorry. When you add more dirt, yes, you can actually cover the greens. Absolutely.
We got
cover
that.
the leaves. As I said, those little stems will make little potatoes out to the side. Satellite potatoes.
There are a lot of questions on that, so I accidentally wrote them down.
Oh yeah, no, that's yeah, because who knows? You look at it and you go, I don't know, should I cover it? Should I not? It's a good question. Yes, potatoes, they do really well with chives, I think, because they're friends at the dinner table. You don't, when you're rotating your crops, I go by a 4 kind of grid thing. So if you want to plant potatoes and tomatoes, they like the same nutrients. You just don't want to plant tomatoes after or before potatoes because, again, you're using up the same nutrients and exposing potatoes to the same diseases. So one of the best things to grow before potatoes is green beans or peas or things like that, because they are nitrogen rich, and that's really beneficial. But I grow my potatoes with chives and onions. Never had a problem. Lettuces, anything that's not in the same family.
Great. Next question. If I have small potatoes left over from last year's planting that have been in the fridge all winter that do not have eyes, can I plant these?
Well, they'll just rot. The eyes is really what says that you have a viable plant that says, I want to make new potatoes. So you can put them in a paper bag, a brown paper bag, and leave them in your kitchen, in a corner of your kitchen, and see if they'll sprout eyes. Because if they're in the fridge and they haven't sprouted eyes, they potentially may sprout eyes and be viable, but you have to give them a chance to wake up from the fridge. So they may not sprout eyes in the fridge, but once they've been in a warm, nice environment, they might go, yeah, and then sure. But again, those are overwintered seed potatoes or potatoes that probably will give you less crop and potentially are carrying diseases. So you just want to be really careful and not have wild expectations about those potatoes. But it's fun experiment.
Great. We have time for a few more questions. How much soil space should be under the planted seed potato?
So clarify this. You will get answers all over the place, and it also depends on where you're planting them. So obviously, if you're planting them outside in a raised bed, you're going to have a little bit more room. And if you're planting them in containers, like I said it, or I showed in the video, 3 to 6 inches is all you pretty much need under the potatoes. Essentially, like I said, as long as the soil is nutrient dense and it's good soil and not hard packed, they will grow horizontally. So they don't go deep. They don't go deeper than where you put them, really. And I know this from desperately digging deeper under my plants to see if I missed one, and I never have missed one because they grow horizontally. So you don't need a lot of space underneath them.
All right. Do you need to feed the soil in any way? Do potatoes leach any nutrients, and is it necessary to plant a cover crop?
Okay, so let's start with, do you need to feed potatoes in soil? If you know you're going to plant potatoes, the best thing is to amend your soil the fall before. So, and that would be with a 5-5-5 nutrient, potassium, phosphorus, nitrogen amendment. Or I like to do, I just throw all my banana peels in the garden as I'm putting it to bed in fall. So if you're worried about your soil, test it and see what you're lacking. If you have good soil, then not necessarily. That's the nice thing about potatoes. They're not really fussy. And if you have good soil, you don't need to do it. Potatoes do like nitrogen in the soil and potassium and phosphorus, so they will take that away, which is why crop rotation, especially with potatoes, is key to successful crops, because it's, for 2 reasons, it's bad to plant potatoes in the same spot. They get diseases that overwinter from the potato crop before, and and then they have less nutrients to work with if they're planted in the same spot. So as I said before, if you have peas or beans or whatever, put your potatoes in that spot the next year. Or if you planted peas or beans in a container, put potatoes in the next year. And as far as a cover crop, no. In fact, potatoes, their area, they like to be weeded, and they do not want a bunch of stuff over. If I were to plant a cover crop before planting potatoes, I would plant something like clover or again, peas, beans, something that leaches nitrogen back into the soil.
Great. Is there any way to make sure that the potatoes stay small in size?
Yes. Yeah. If you want little potatoes, oh my gosh, that's the fun part. The way to keep potatoes small and tasty is to plant your seed potato with tons and the most eyed seed potato that you can find, because the more eyes, the more little potatoes you're going to get. And then keep the dirt shallow and hill up. But what you will do is get your little potatoes, once it flowers, root around in there, get your little potatoes, pull them out, and then hill up, and your potato plant over the leaves that you've now just hilled up will make more itty bitty little potatoes. So yes, and that's a fun way of doing it, because the more you take away from the potato plant, the more little, if you are in that season and it's warm enough, it will make more potatoes. Yeah, like that guy.
How far apart would you set the seed plants if in a trough layout?
So in the video I showed, they don't mind being that crowded. So I don't plant them any closer than 6 inches. But again, as I said, with fingerlings, they want a little bit more room. So with fingerlings, about 8 inches, just roughly. So in your average 8-foot bed, you can probably put six, five, six plant seed potatoes. And if you double that, that's enough for a family for the next, or at the end of the season for 2.5 months.
That leads nicely into the next question of how many potatoes can we expect from one seed potato?
So it's a pound per pound, or it's a weight thing. So from one seed potato, depending on how many eyes, again, and how large you want your potatoes, one seed potato is you get, for every seed potato, you'll probably get 4 to 6 healthy sized potatoes and several itty bitty little ones. And if you dig out the little itty bitty ones that are closer to the top of the stem, it will make the ones at the bottom larger. So it's a weight thing, really. So it's a 1 to 10 in terms of weight.
Great. And our last question for now, there were a lot of questions that came in. So Melissa will also be sharing her email address in case anyone has follow-up questions that we didn't get to. But for now, we're going to end on what kind of soil should we start with?
Okay. So soil should be not compact, not heavy soil. Potatoes, like I said, like a lot of wiggle room. So they like pine needles that breaks up the soil, or wood chips that breaks up the soil. So basically, the soil should be rich, no green stuff. So if you're using compost, you don't want any not really thoroughly decomposed matter. They want totally decomposed matter, dark brown stuff. If you want to check your soil, like I said, but you know by looking at your soil if it's good soil. Lots of organic matter, pine needles, like I said, but basic, and no manure, animal poop, that kind of stuff. Not good for potatoes. So well decomposed matter that's aerated and loose.
Great. So thank you so much, Melissa, for answering all of those questions for us.
Yes, and I want pictures. That way, very important, pictures.
Melissa is super excited to see how everyone's potato plants do in the area here. Before we wrap up, we're going to go into a little bit of information about the starter plant pickup process. So as those of you know, our first plant pickup will be this Saturday, May 16th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at 4 different locations around the basin and in Truckee. Those locations that you will be picking up at were indicated in your registration, which we have. So we're anticipating that everyone will go to the site that they indicated in their registration. You will be getting a follow-up email from me that will have site-specific instructions to help those that are facilitating the pickup process go as smoothly as possible, since this is something that we haven't done before in this fashion. But the important things for everyone to know, no matter what site you're going to, something that's going to be really important to make this process as seamless as possible, since we have hundreds of people coming to pick up potato starter plants. As Melissa said, there will be 3 kinds of potato plants in a bag for you. I'm not even going to try to butcher the names of the 3 that she indicated earlier, but you'll get 3 to 4 seed potatoes in those bags that she has prepared for you. And what, as Melissa was talking about earlier, we're trying to do as collective organizations is figure out what species grow really well in the basin here, as well as in the Truckee area or wherever you may be gardening with these. So we're asking that everyone fill out this survey. To be able to pick up your starter plants, you have to fill out this survey. It'll help us gather data on where people are doing their gardening, and we'll be following up with you later in the season to see how your potato plants actually perform. So that'll help us in the future. You won't be able to pick up your plants without filling out that survey. So if you can fill it out before Saturday, that'll be great. If you show up and haven't filled out that survey, you'll be asked by whoever is at the site you're picking up from to fill that out. And additionally, in consideration for everyone in our community together, we're going to ask that everyone wears a mask Everyone that will be facilitating the pickup process will be wearing a mask. We know this is kind of a bizarre time, but we want to minimize any risk of spreading any illnesses to one another. More information about that process will be in the follow-up email. But for now, if you have any additional questions that weren't answered by Melissa during the talk, you can contact her at tahoe.ucdavis.edu. This is the link to the survey as well. I ask that you fill that out before showing up to pick up your potato plants. This Saturday, I know there are other workshops. This is the pickup for the potato plants specifically. And then additionally, if you'd like to rewatch the workshop or share it with anyone or register for any of the other upcoming workshops, you can do that at tahoe.ucdavis.edu/garden-workshops. If you have any questions about the pickup process or anything like that, the email that you'll be receiving, you can directly reply to that if you have any questions, and we'll be sure to get those answered. But for now, thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you, Melissa, for taking the time to, again, put those videos together and educate us about how to grow potatoes in the area here. I'm gonna leave this screen up for a little bit in case anyone wants to write any of this information down, and as well as address some questions that are coming in the chat box. But that's all that we have for you right now. We hope that everyone is staying safe and healthy, and we look forward to seeing all of you picking up starter plants on Saturday. Thank you.